NoNonsenseKnowHow here, and in this video I want to bring you a fast-paced overview of the process I use to winterize my jet ski. This one happens to be a 4-stroke, fuel-injected ski, first year to 4-stroke for Kawasaki. Now I've seen people winterize skis from mild to wild, and if you look through your service manual, every manufacturer has a slightly different process they use. The one thing you cannot skip, or you're asking for trouble, is getting marine grade RV antifreeze inside of the cooling system, usually pink or red in color, and a gallon or two will do the job, and fogging the engine cylinders so that the steel inside of there doesn't rust, and then you'll end up with a beat motor that's burning oil. Just to show you a quick comparison, in my freezer here, I put some water in an unsealed jug, and you can see when that water freezes, it expands and cracks whatever it's in, like your engine block. And then got some RV antifreeze here, and when this freezes, it will get slushy, but not hard enough to break anything. That being said, let's get on with the process I use. Make sure to give this a thumbs up. I'll be sure to plug in the links to everything I use in this video down below, and also check down there for any corrections that I might add in the future. Step 1, get yourself some marine grade fuel stabilizer and follow the instructions on the back. This says 1 ounce for every 10 gallons. This ski has a 16-gallon tank, so I'm going to add 1.5 ounces of this into the fuel tank. And after I pour that in here, I'll top this off with fuel. I think that's a very important step when you're storing something, because inside of this fuel tank, you have a big air cavity when it's empty, and that can lead to condensation buildup with the temperature changing. I've also seen there's a big fuel pump inside of here, and when you store them empty, that fuel pump tends to rust. All right, we're now ready to start this thing up, get some RV antifreeze in the engine, and also cycle that stabilized fuel through the fuel system. I'll explain my setup here real quick. Now, you can get these jugs on Amazon with this adapter. I'll put links down below for all this stuff, but this is just one I kind of retrofitted. So I was running this ski earlier, so I have my garden hose in here with cooling water, and then I have the valve shut off going to my RV tank, so the water will bypass that, and then I had this valve open here, and of course attached to my flush port here. Now your flush port might be under the seat or on the back, but on the STX12F, it's up here. And so the idea here is after you've been running it for a while, you can shut your water off and then just open the flow valve to your RV antifreeze, and that will gravity feed right into here. One step worth considering if you run your ski in primarily salt water is running some of this salt away through it. This will neutralize and remove the salt deposits throughout the engine. Now, one variation to using a gravity jug like that, and you may have seen this in my past video, is using a refillable fire extinguisher like this. You can empty the water out of this and then pressurize it up to 50 psi, which is household water pressure. And then I use an adapter that I put right on here, and you can just power shoot the antifreeze right into the engine. I decided not to use that for this video because I understand not everybody has that. Now, prior to flowing antifreeze into the engine, I usually disconnect this main hose going to both these mufflers, and I use a shop vac to suck out any water in them. But in this case, I'm going to run the antifreeze through the flush port first as a test, and I want to see if the antifreeze actually makes it into these. So anyway, with our garden hose off and the flow valve open going to the engine, we can open the RV antifreeze port and fire this thing up. You'll see this level start to drop, and make sure you have the vent breather out on top of here so that all that can flow into the engine. And coming to the back here, we can see that water is coming out of the back, but we're gonna wait until we see this is pink. I'm gonna let 2 gallons flow into this. All right, now we can see the RV antifreeze is coming out of the outlet down here, but not the exhaust. All right, with my jug just about empty, I definitely had plenty of antifreeze come out of the back here, but I can't say it was 100% pink coming out of the muffler, so let's find out what's inside of those now. All right, and that connector hose slid right off, and now I'm gonna vacuum out these 2 mufflers and see what's inside. Now I'm kind of shocked, nothing even came out of these. I wasn't getting any water, and the hose was going all the way down to the bottom. So I guess when you rev this thing out of the water, it tends to just blow these things right out. And there's probably just a little bit of water in there, but I can't tell you if it was pink or clear because I literally got nothing on my hose. So as a precaution, I'll just pour some RV antifreeze in each muffler to prevent corrosion. And yeah. All right, I put a cord into each one. And one thing I always do is I use marine grease like this. And any hose I take off on these, I like to rub the grease around where the hose contacts, and maybe even inside of the hose. And that way you don't get any corrosion, because these, when the salt water gets in between on this aluminum, they just love to corrode through. So I've been doing that forever, and then it's a lot easier to get hoses off and such. All right, this engine has plenty of antifreeze in it. I feel like this video is really dragging on. So put your flush plug back on and we're done with that. Moving right along, time to fog the cylinders. Now this can be done one of three ways in my opinion, maybe more. The first and the easiest is if you have easy access to your throttle body right here or your air box, you can just start the engine up, leave it running, and just start shooting the fogging oil in there until the engine shuts off. Keep spraying some more and crank it over, and that'll flood the cylinders out with some fogging oil. That works well, but on this engine it's not easy to access the throttle body without taking things off, and the inlet's all the way over here, so that wouldn't be sufficient because it's just going to pull up on the bottom of the airbox. The next way would be removing your fuel rail and spraying it in through the injector holes. I've seen people do that. I'm not going to do it that way because I think it's easiest to just remove the spark plugs, and it gives you a chance to inspect them at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that. I just used an extension, a 16mm socket, this Milwaukee M12 1/4" ratchet, which I love. This thing's very handy. And then the magnet like this to pull them out. You can see my plugs look pretty darn good. No problems there. Now I'm going to shoot some down each spark plug hole. Let's call it 5 seconds per hole. Now get yourself a towel to cover these spark plug holes up and crank the engine over. And the cylinders are fogged. One note here for you, on some skis like a Sea-Doo, when you take the plug leads off, there'll be little ground towers where you can ground these out so that they won't spark and cause a fire or anything like that. So now go ahead and reinstall your spark plugs. And cut. Got to take just a few seconds here to thank my sponsor, Mountain Brew Ice, the beer that helps make things like winterizing your jet ski a little bit more bearable. And if you look at the can, this is a true activity beer. Yeah, they don't really leave much out on here. If you read down the bottom, you got activities of all sorts on here. I'm pretty sure winterizing your boat and jet ski is on there. Back to the show. Moving right along, here are some of the other things you should definitely consider doing, especially if you're going to be storing this for a long time. Now, some guys like to change their oil before they winterize it, especially if it's black and dirty, but mine's pretty clean. Didn't use it much this year, and it's up to level. I've also heard some guys say they'd like to put a new fuel filter on. I generally do that in the springtime, but if I use it a lot and I think there could be water in there, I will do it before the winter. So that's options you have. But now let's run through some other items you should definitely consider doing. Your battery would be a great idea to remove the battery and put it on a trickle charger inside your garage or your house. I like to take some marine corrosion inhibitor spray like this and spray any surfaces that are exhibiting rust or maybe prone to rusting, and also on points like this, make sure that you have no corrosion on your terminals and rub some marine grease on there if you do. I also take this and will go around the entire trailer spraying your winch and coupler and other areas. It really depends on how crazy you want to get with it. And then I like to come down on the jet drive here and make sure you don't have any leaves or debris up in there. And I like to spray my whole drive back here with some corrosion inhibitor too, so that way you don't have any issues there. Next, I take some balled up plastic bags, have tons of those, and I'll stick them in the air inlets up here, which is right under the seat there, and then in the muffler as well to try to deter mice and rodents. And of course, yeah, they could chew right through this. They'll really chew through anything, but at least in the springtime, if you go and you see these have been removed or you see plastic bits all over the ground, you know you have an issue. It's a good idea to remove all the items from your ski if you don't want mildew on them. But if you are leaving them in there, at least come in and check the bottoms for any water at all. You can see this is perfectly dry, and so I'm going to leave my life vests up in here because they're old and I really don't care that much. But same thing with like a storage bin like this. Make sure you don't have any water on the bottom. And here's a big one for you. I mentioned this in my other video as well. Repack and clean out your wheel bearings. Look at this, just popping this cap off. There is water in there and it's already rusting pretty good. So the only time I repack my wheel bearings is just before the winter, because that's when you've been using them all year, and I don't care if they say these things are sealed. Water always seems to get in there no matter what. Not going to show you that in this video because it's there's a million other videos on how to do it, so I'll try to plug that in down below. And I know I mentioned it before, but make sure you dry all the water out of your ski. Like you see, I still have some down there, but definitely you don't want any pools of water in there, because if you seal this up like I did and you seal the vents, this thing can't breathe very well, and then you're going to get a high humidity environment in there and corrode things worse than they would already corrode. Now, as far as where you can store your ski, if you can keep it out of the elements in a carport like this, it's really the best way. I'll just throw this jet ski cover on top to keep the dust off, and no problems in here. But if you're storing it out where it rains, I think it's important to raise the front up, and that way you don't get water pooling and sitting in these wells causing mildew and problems there. Of course, I raise mine up anyway because I roll the stand-up ski underneath the front. All right, well, that video dragged out a lot longer than I expected. Hopefully I didn't miss too much. Again, check down below in that description for any corrections and for anything I used in this video. If you've got some thoughts or things you would do differently, appreciate the comment down below and let me know. Check out my channel, toss me a subscribe, all the usual stuff like that, and all that is greatly appreciated. So hopefully you got something out of this and it helped you out. Until next time, this is KZ Guy 2 here, No Nonsense Know How, and I'll see you later.